Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Whole bunch of people sent me this story, including Kevin and JP. Thank you very much. Dad hacks database to fake death and avoid child support. This headline kind of tells the story, but it's amazing how far some people will go to avoid their obligations. Joe Tidy wrote this for the BBC, and yeah, the story happened in America, but it hit the BBC. It's that entertaining. A man's been sentenced to more than 6 years in prison. So these aren't mere allegations. We're talking federal court and a federal sentence. 6 years in prison after hacking into a state database to fake his death, primarily to get out of paying child support. Now, he actually hacked some other things too. So he's from Kentucky. He was sentenced to 81 months for computer fraud and aggravated identity theft. You might say identity theft. Wait, wasn't he just disposing of his own? Well, I suspect that when he disposed of his own identity, he needed another one. It's really, really hard to operate in America if you are dead legally. And so you may need to acquire another identity. He's 39 years old, and he admitted to accessing the Hawaii death registry system in January of last year so that he could create a case for his own death. Because as you can imagine, these systems are out there, and they collect this information. And so if you die, somebody in the state gets that information, feeds it to the database, and then you're officially no more. So here we have the system in Hawaii that he decided to use. He then completed a state of Hawaii death certificate worksheet, assigned himself as the medical certifier of the case, and certified his own death. And then he used the digital signature of a doctor. So, of course, you can't certify your own death. Usually there's technical issues there. We're still working on it, but it's difficult. So this meant that he was at that point successfully registered as a deceased person. And what happens is when one state enters it, other states and then the feds will pick it up off the database. And so it'll work its way into the system that, oh, yeah, he's dead. If you want to look it up, the official records are in Hawaii for whatever reason. He admitted that he did it, and he admitted he did it to avoid his outstanding child support obligations. Now, here's the question. What kind of child support obligations would you need to inspire you to fake your own death? He owed more than $100,000. $100,000. The hacker also accessed other death registry systems and companies in unrelated hacks that he carried out using the stolen login credentials of real physicians and workers. So apparently he's doing this with hospitals and so on. He was also found to be offering to sell access to these systems and selling the stolen databases containing private information such as social security numbers, and he was doing this to other cyber criminals on the darknet. The darknet is a portion of the internet only accessible through specialist software that hides a browser's identity. There are many darknet marketplaces where cyber criminals sell stolen data or access to compromised IT systems. There's also things like there used to be a thing called the Silk Road, where you could go and buy all kinds of crazy stuff. But they shut that one down. So this man sold this information and access to international buyers, including people that they identified from Algeria, Russia, and Ukraine. And that was something that the court was told as they were trying to figure out how much time this guy should spend in prison. So the U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Kentucky, which is where the guy's apparently from, said this scheme was a cynical and destructive effort based in part on the inexcusable goal of avoiding his child support obligations. Under federal law, he must serve 85% of his prison sentence and will be under the supervision of the U.S. Probation Office for 3 years. So federal law is a little harsher than many state laws. In a lot of states, they can sentence you to 10 years in prison, but with good time, you can be out in 5. And that's just routine where they say, oh, every good day in prison, we'll give you a credit for another day. And next thing you know, it's like a 2-for-1 deal. But feds say, no, you spend at least 85% of your time locked up. The damage to the governmental and corporate computer systems and his failure to pay child support amounted to a total of $195,000. And that's one of the things they'll do before they sentence somebody is you enter a plea, and and they say, okay, we'll accept the plea. You'll come back later for sentencing. And they'll do a pre-sentencing investigation and a report that they'll give to the judge, and they'll say, here's what we've found out. And they'll do things such as try to calculate what harm you caused. And if they can put a dollar value on it, they will. So he owed $100,000 in child support, give or take. And they say the total damage this man caused with his crimes was $195,758.65. That's 65 cents. I'm just amazed by the precision of it. So I don't know if they went and interviewed people who work at the companies whose databases were compromised and said, how much did you pay to clean this up? How much harm was caused? It's hard to say. When you sell somebody's social security number, how much, what's the dollar value of that to the person who's harmed? How much did it cost them? It's hard to say what it is. It's just a pain if they got to, clean some stuff up. But I remember reading a book, and this is about 20 years ago, but I saw a book. I'm looking, you walk into a Barnes & Noble or a Borders back then, and they got those front table books. And by the way, I've actually had my books on the front table once or twice. But you walk up and there's a front tables with books on them. And there was a book, and I apologize for not remembering the title of the book, but it was written by a guy who was a private investigator for years. And the book was basically how you could, if you really wanted to, disappear and start another life. And basically the guy explained all of it. And he said, here are things you can do. But this was way before the internet had gotten to where it is now. But also the guy basically repeated over and over and over again that no matter how good you are, almost everybody gets caught eventually. And so I'd be curious to know how they caught this guy, because it doesn't say how they caught him. But quite often, the guy who wrote the book I'm talking about, said that so many people think, I've got all these troubles in my life, I'd love to just disappear, fake my own death, and start all over again. Maybe in Canada, who knows? And so you start your new life over, right? How long is it until you start thinking, boy, I miss home? And a bunch of the people I knew, they were a bunch of jerks, but a couple of them are nice people. I bet I could contact this one guy and ask him to keep a secret. And the guy who wrote the book had been somebody who tried to track people down. And he said that you could often dig into somebody's past and look at the patterns and the things they did and where they went and what they enjoyed. And he goes, you can often figure out where they might be today. And he goes, you'd be surprised. So occasionally we do hear stories about people who disappear for long periods of time and pop back up, they pop back up again. Again, like I said, I don't know how this guy got caught. I don't know. But it makes you wonder, because you would think that if you had faked your own death, gotten it into a government database, and then come up with a new identity that somehow appeared to be relatively bulletproof, he still got caught. He's going to prison for it, which is not the way that story was supposed to end, at least not from his viewpoint. So 81 months in prison. I could do the math. I'm guessing right around 7 years, give or take. But Kevin, JP, thank you for sending me the story. Dad hacks database to fake death and avoid child support payments from the BBC World Service. And Joe Tidy wrote that. Unbelievable. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. So no one else can see me, my true identity. Domo arigato, Mr. Roboto.